Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We are back on the saddle again today riding, and we have a very interesting guest with us, Mr. Dion LaFoucade. He's the technical director of Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. And Dion has been in the game for many moves. You know, most importantly, a man of God, which is very much important, the most important part of it there. And Dion has, you know, coached in a number of places around the world, and you know, very much attuned to what is transpiring. Dion is also a motivational speaker, and we are so happy to have him with us, you know, today, to be able to, you know, to chat with us and you know, inform us, educate us, and guide us in terms of it, because as you know, we don't know everything, and the more we get the different, you know, takes, and we put all the different ingredients in the pot, Dion, we come up with a wonderful dish. So let me bring on Dion, and Dion would be able to talk to us about his journey. As you know, his journey, I believe it started all the way back in Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken. And Dion had a very successful academy in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of the top kids passed through his academy, and then Dion, you know, affiliated with some of the top clubs around the world too, and academies. Dion, I believe, was one of the first ones I remember in Trinidad when I lived way back then, that he would bring some of the top clubs, academies and coaches to Trinidad and Tobago. A pioneer, Dion LaFoucade. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I hope I can live up to what you've said. And also thank you to the AR Student Scholarship Academy for having me. To talk about my journey, to be quite honest, you know, a little kid grew up, you know, as a little kid, I grew up loving football, and I was not the best player, but you know, I had my twin brother and myself, we just loved playing the game. And you know, we played a little bit in, actually I didn't even play in primary school, and nothing formal. We just used to go and play on the beach, and we play what we call in Trinidad, we call small goal. I played plenty small goal. And what I do remember is playing small goal without shoes on. A couple of times you needed some plasters afterwards, you know, because you get your feet cut up, and sometimes you're running on the pitch like it's no problem. And then from there, I went to St. Anthony's College from 1982 to 87, and played, you know, as a first year as a goalkeeper, because the coach said, "You're tall, you're going to goal." That didn't last too long, because these guys were trying to kill me. So what eventually happened is that I played out, and then I went on. I played for the under 19, and at that time, St. Anthony's was at the second level, and eventually I got Player of the Year for the school, and which is sort of unusual, and I give God all the glory as a defender. But I think what was, you know, is better for me, what gave me the nod, was I was the type of player that I would look to do all the extra chores. I would help the coaches. I would do all the different things that the top star boys didn't want to do. You know, so I didn't only work hard on the field. And I know one thing, when the Coach Nigel Grosvenor, when he picked his team, I would always be in the top 5. And it was very, very challenging, because my mom and dad felt that there's nothing in football, and why are you playing? Why are you taking the game so seriously? You know, you should be studying your school. And of course, you know, that I heard that quite often, and you know, quite a lot from my parents. But you know, eventually, you know, so played at St. Anthony's, and then right after my Form 5 year, I had aspirations, one, you know, to get a repeater, and then to maybe go on to higher level playing football. And I got a very bad knee injury, a knee injury that basically was a career-ending injury. And of course, at that time, my parents couldn't afford to carry me for surgery. So I was like, wow, my dreams of being a footballer and being a top footballer has just gone through the window. And then, you know, I don't know why I got this idea from, you know, maybe I should try some coaching, you know. And I know there was a coach who used to assist in St. Anthony's called Kenny Lai. And he had a leadership course that I actually was one of the few students who decided to take part in the course, because I thought, you know, my parents felt, well, you know, it's a leadership course. You want to be a leader in life, go and take the course. And eventually I was the only person who remained in the course.
Mm.
And I have to give Coach Kenny like credit. He kept me there. So I did this leadership course, and then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do some, just try and learn something about coaching. I can still be around the game. And of course, I remember going to a seminar, and the instructor of that seminar was a coach of Canada by the name of Tony Waiters. And imagine me being 17 years old in a seminar with coaches who are in their 30s, 40s, and whatever. And he said to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I want to be a coach." And he said, "Look, young man, the mere fact that you are sitting down here with all these coaches and you're here, I think you're going to do a great job as a coach." And something about those words kind of, I held on to it. Like, wow, this is a top coach in the world who told me something so glowing, and I'm not used to that. I used to give a little bit of, I have to be honest, I used to give a little bit of trouble in school and give my parents some trouble. And to hear somebody looking up to me and say, "Hey, you could be something great in life." And one thing led to another, and Kenny and I actually had a coaching school which I actually helped with a little bit, and he gave me the 5-year-olds, and I, then a lot of times, honestly, it was just about giving those little kids a bit of fun. But in terms of coaching, I really didn't have an idea what I was doing, and I just said, well, once I make little fun games for the kids and I put the ball there, that should be something good for those kids. And then I used to live in Carnage, and I used to drive past this park all the time on my way to Kent School. I used to drive past this park, and I would see this guy in a park with just 3 or 4 kids, no uniform, anything, just this guy with some kids. And I was like, I wondered that on the days I didn't have coaching to do, I wondered if that guy wants some help. Does he want some help? And I was like, man, I need to do something. So I stopped off one day, and what we call the maxi taxis in Trinidad, and I stopped off and I went up to him and I said, do you need somebody to throw the ball back, when it goes close to the road, go down in the drain and get it so the kids don't go close to the road? And he's like, sure, yeah. So I was there being the ball boy for these kids, and this guy is training these 4 kids. And then the second week, he said to me, man, to be honest, I'm still playing soccer. Do you want to do this? I'm like, what? Do you want to take this over? Because I'm just trying to please this lady in the neighborhood with her son and a couple of his friends, and I don't really want to do this. And I'm like, well, I guess so, sure. So now I went from the ball boy being the coach, and these kids were all enthusiastic. They didn't know if I knew what I needed to know. They just knew that this guy is enthusiastic. And that went on, and I started to do more seminars, and eventually we got a uniform, and more kids in the neighborhood started coming, and the parents started giving the support. And the next thing you know, we have a coaching school, and I'm like, wow. And of course, one thing led to another, and I had this eagerness to learn. I remember I used to go and sit down in the Ministry of Sport, and I would go and talk to Everett Galley Cummins, who coached our strikes for the 1989, and just ask him 20 million coaching questions, just asking all these questions like, what coaching, and tell me some things about how to coach, and then some things about what to coach. And I'm like, man, I need to, I'm getting so enthusiastic. And do you have a little coaching book you could give me? Those days we didn't have the internet and all that stuff and stuff online. And any book they give me, I'll read it. I'll start reading the book, and anything I learn, I go and try and implement with the kids, not knowing if it's successful or not. I said, let me try it. And one thing I emphasized on was fun. So once kids are having fun, they're coming, right? They kept coming, and kids are start coming out the woodwork. And I'm like, then I needed to get some help, because when you start, we have like 20, 30 kids. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm onto something here. And just had this burning desire to learn and to get better, because somewhere along the line, I learned that knowledge is power, and power is influence that leads to success. So the more knowledgeable I become, is the more powerful I become. The more powerful I become is the more influential I become. So, and then, like, wow. So I started to learn more, and then eventually it led to me, doing many more courses and seminars, and any opportunity I had to learn, I took it up. I didn't care, if with different factions of coaches, if it was Alvin Cornell, I'll ask Alvin Cornell. Whoever I could learn from, And I remember when I went to the ministry, I remember there's a very tall guy. One day he said, "Son, who are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I see you coming in here every day asking a million questions. That eagerness is something out of this world. You're so eager as a coach. You just want to get information."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't have a clue who this guy was talking to me. And it turned out to be Tony Gray, who played for the West Indies.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what inspired me, because he was like, "Man, you just so eager to learn. Just keep going." And of course, lots of different people kept encouraging me and so on. The parents kept encouraging me. And then all of a sudden, I decided at 17, I want to go and do a course in English FA. I'm going to go to England to do a course. Yeah. So I wrote a letter to the English FA, and I have to be honest, they wrote me back and say, "Wait till you're 19. We don't take 17-year-old coaches." And I'm like, okay, no problem. And eventually I went to the English FA and I did my prelim, and then I did a bunch of different courses and seminars and so. And I always kept that hunger for learning, that hunger for getting better. Can I be better than I was yesterday? So every day comes, can I be better than I was yesterday? And of course, I'm feeding off of the kids, getting all these new drills and different activities for them to do. And then understanding also that coaching has a lot of psychology in it. There's the mental side of it. And then there's the sports science side of it, and start learning all these little things. And I have to be honest, some of the classes I've gone in and the seminars, I'm asking myself, what language are these guys speaking? Because when you start talking about mitochondria and adenosine triphosphate, lactic acid, and
indeed,
I want to be a coach. What am I doing in this place? And realizing that as a coach, you have to learn all these different facets, because for soccer or football is an anaerobic sport, and that's without oxygen. So if the intensity is very, very high, then I can't do something for very, very long. So I have to give work to rest ratio and start understanding these things, and like, well, this starts to make sense. And then you start getting into periodization and all these different things, and then I start writing little programs and stuff. And I remember one time when I was in St. Anthony's, and I don't know if it was a prophetic word, I got this little book on coaching, and man, that thing had about, let's say, about 100 drills, and I killed that book. And I remember one of the boys, I always remember his name in St. Anthony's, the goalkeeper named Nicholas Telfer. He came up with this name and he called me FIFA approved. And that name stuck. And I was like, why you call me FIFA approved? He's like, man, you have some cool drills. We like that. And that stuck in my mind. And of course, with all humility, I just kept going and going and going and going. And eventually, fast forward many years, that clinic went on for 27 years. Quite a few kids, got scholarships and went on to national teams and so. But it's been a real interesting journey. And I will say this also, that journey was tough because, life was a little bit tough for me, and I did not have the funding, and so I remember writing a bunch of companies, because of course, if I go to England, I want to go and do other courses, and I want to go and do the advanced course in England. So I remember writing all these different companies, and someone say, "Coach, we love your ambitious outlook, but we can't sponsor you," and so on. And I got some little help. Yeah, not much, but eventually, where there's a will, there's a way. So the little money I was getting from coaching, I saved up, and eventually I went to the bank, and a couple of the parents said, "Coach, you're so eager for our kids. What we're going to do is we're going to stand the security for your loans." And I was like, "Okay, Coach, we trust you. You seem to be an honest person." And he said, "If you don't pay it off, we know where to find you." So I started taking different loans and doing different courses, and it has been tough, because some of the countries you go in, it has been, it's very cold. Sometimes the level it's like, wow, I have to ask other coaches to help me. And at the same time, while on those courses, I start networking. I remember one time I went to a coaching seminar in England, and I was at this coaching course, and I remember the academy director of Everton was sitting next to me, and I said, "Hey, is there any way I could go to Liverpool? I read something about the academy." And he just turns to the guy next to him, John Owens, and says, "John, can you take this guy to your academy?" And I'm like, "What am I doing in a group like this? It was, so it was one journey, and then being a fly on the wall. I'll give a little example at Liverpool. Being a fly on the wall, I go for many years and just learn and try to, and I'll ask a million questions. They say, he who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes. He who refrains from asking the question could be a fool for life. I don't want to be a fool for life. If there's a drill or something they're doing and I'm not quite sure, I'm going to ask the question, even today, because you're always learning. So I did that, and I got to go to Liverpool, and eventually John started saying, you coming here quite often. What about taking one of the practices? Of course, my knees started to knock. My knees started to knock like, you want me to do what? Man, but eventually I did it, and then they like what I did, and John has invited me back. So I work with kids from 9 years old all the way to 18 at the Liverpool Academy over 10 years. And then start going to different academy. I remember Shaka brought me into West Ham, and the same thing. He introduced me to Tony Carr, who at that time was the academy director. And he said, okay, you're going to do a practice with the under 18, but what are you going to do? I said, well, I have something I do with hula hoops. And he said, is it plyometrics? Big word. And I said, well, not quite. It's something, and it's going to be, and he kind of gave me a look like, you know what, all right, we'll take the chance. Shaka says, you're a good guy. He put his head on the block for you. I get there the Monday morning, and I'll be honest with you. I am nervous like I'm going to take a penalty for Trinidad in a World Cup. I'm so nervous. But I say, you know what, Dion, just go and do your best. And I remember what really boosted my confidence after 20 minutes of the practice. A couple of the coaches who came to watch were in the practice, doing the practices. And one of the players for England, there was Joe Cole in the practice, there was Jermaine Defoe, and I say with all humility. And they gave me some really good encouragement because they really enjoyed what I did. And it was fun, of course, but very challenging, technically challenging. So I'm just taking these opportunities to go around the world and doing these courses and so on, doing seminars. And, you're always learning. You're always learning. And because football is really about philosophy. I have a way that I think the game should be played. And now what is the methodology I'm going to use that to teach that philosophy? So I started getting more into the science of the game. And then I realized that, when I started off and some of the seminars sounded like the guys were talking German or Russian or something, it started to make more sense. And of course, I don't want to single out anybody. There are many coaches, John included, John Owens included, who have helped me and encouraged me along the way. And a lot of guys in Trinidad, too, not just the foreign guys, so it has been that type of journey and lots of ups and downs. I didn't always have the money to travel, but I think people see passion. And when they see that passion, you're like, you know what, kid? I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to invest some money in you because you need to exude. Look, I want to be the best I can. And wherever you're born, you don't have to die there. Things, for me, sometimes getting a meal was a little bit of a challenge. And I'm saying that very nicely. It wasn't always easy getting a meal. My mom tried her best. My dad tried their best, but things were rough, a little bit rough at times. So it was a question of, how am I going to overcome these challenges? And what I've learned in life, every obstacle you get, there are obstacles in life, there are also opportunities. And I have to be 100% honest. If it was not for God, I would not be here today. God really makes a way where there seems to be no way. There's a phrase that is, he is the way maker. And I've been in some situations where God, I don't know how you're going to solve this. How are you going to help me this problem? I remember one time I'm going to do a course in England and I had literally no spending money. I couldn't even take a train to go and I'm just going to this is they say come this place for the course. And I remember that afternoon before I left, a parent came and said, Coach, here's £200. You cannot go in a place like that and not have some money in your pocket. I'm like, wow, God, you answered that prayer. And throughout my journey, I've been in Colorado, different states, working as a director of coaching. Many miracles, many doors that God has opened up, and that's one of the things. Life, and I could tell anybody, it was not easy walk. I remember when I told my friends, I had some kids I used to hang out with, right? My buddies, in Trinidad we say we line with, but for the American kids we say hang out, and I told those guys, I'm going to coach in some of the best clubs in the world one day. And my buddies literally laughed at me. My own buddies. And of course, you know, you want to be macho and you laugh with them, but inside it hurts. So
Right.
these are the guys who said they're going to be there with you through the thick and thin. And they're like, I think a ball hit him in his head, and guys leave him. He's just gone off on soccer. Yeah, he wants to coach in some of the best clubs in the world and do different things. And them guys would laugh at me, and they would see me and go, right, no problem at all. Hey, you still have a headache? You still want to go and coach in the best clubs in the world? Man, wake up. You're from Trinidad. Come on, get your act together. But you know the funny thing? Fast forward many years, them same guys run up to me and say, man, I saw you on TV. Hey, I feel so good for you. I always know you had it in you. What? It's crazy, and sometimes we need this motivation because one of the joys in life is to do something somebody told you could never do.
Mm.
You can't achieve that. You can't achieve that, right? If you take the word impossible
Right.
and you break it up, what do you get? You put the I by itself, and you put the M by itself, and you put the word possible by itself. What do you get? I am possible.